Human trials for a coronavirus vaccine will begin today, but there are warnings that an effective one will not be ready to use this year.
If people are hoping that it's suddenly going to move from where we are now in lockdown suddenly into everything's gone, that is a wholly unrealistic expectation. We're going to have to do a lot of things for really quite a long period of time.
The government scientific advisors are expected to recommend we don't use surgical face coverings.
Good morning. A nightmare process and too many refusals. Businesses tell Breakfast the government's loan scheme is still not working, despite 12,000 companies getting access to credit. I'll explain.
And good morning. The government tell the Premier League to consider showing games for free once the season resumes. So while the season might finish behind closed doors, the public could still get to see those matches.
Let's have a look at the papers for you right now. We'll start with the Daily Mirror's headline, Glimmer of Light. That's picking up on Mr Raab's comments that the pandemic has peaked. I think, technically, I think what he said is we are in the peak as opposed to the peak has passed. But it's interesting the way that people are interpreting the words.
The Metro is leading on Sir Keir Starmer's criticism of the government's response to the pandemic. Speaking at his first Prime Minister's questions, the newly crowned Labour leader accused the government of failing to respond to UK firms which have offered to provide badly needed protective equipment for NHS staff.
Let's see, The Sun reporting the government is set to recommend that people cover their faces with something as simple as a scarf when at work, in shops or on public transport. Now, we'll try and find out a little bit more about that story this morning. We're speaking to one of the Cabinet, Brandon Lewis, this morning, who, of course, sits on the Cabinet. So we'll just try and find out a little more clarity on that, because there is a representation from SAGE, scientists, to government happening today.
One of the most read stories on the BBC website is about a man who scooped £58 million. That was his win on the lottery. He celebrated by having a beer with his brothers, of course, at a 2-metre distance. His name's Ryan Hoyle. He's from Greater Manchester. He first thought he'd won £2.30. Would have been quite pleased with that. But then he saw an email from the National Lottery on Saturday. Good luck to him. £58 million, of all the times. So £58 million. You can't go on holiday. Housing market, as you've been told, to stagnate, don't move. You can't go away. No building work. What are you going to do with your money?
Wait, I suppose, and then, you're going to feel better in the meantime. I was thinking, actually... that,
all you want to do is spend!
No, but I was thinking, actually, when he said that he thought it was £2.30, it's quite nice when you win a very small amount. If you win a fiver, that's quite nice too.
Yes.
Not to be dismissed, is it?
Always pleased with that.
A little lift.
Are we looking at the insides?
Yeah.
Well, this is just lovely. I mean, Captain Tom Moore, of course, we've done loads with him. It's his birthday next Thursday, isn't it? And he is #1 with Michael Ball at the moment, isn't he? With the song, was it "You'll Never Walk Alone"?
Yep.
So he did make #1. But he's inspired so many people, hasn't he? And he's raised £28 million. Remember, what did he want to raise in the first place? 1,000.
It was £1,000.
Brilliant. But some brilliant tributes coming in. This balloon here, this is Craig and Oliver May's artwork. This is just here, a big balloon of Captain Tom with his walker, with his stroll as well, and lots of other really beautiful tributes as well. Some paintings that have been done of Captain Tom Moore. Anyway, look, he's inspired lots of people in all walks of life to do something different, to just try to do something new, to raise some money. He was doing it for the NHS charities.
20,000 households in England are being contacted to take part in a study to help track Covid-19 in the general population. It's hoped the information from a representative sample from across the UK will help improve understanding of the rate of infection and how many people are likely to have developed antibodies.
Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, will set out her strategy for exiting the coronavirus lockdown later. She's expected to make it clear that an end to the tough restrictions isn't imminent and that some constraints will continue for a prolonged period. Her aim, she says, will be to achieve some semblance of normality.
The earliest realistic point at which schools in England could start to reopen would be the 1st of June. That's according to the leader of the Head Teachers Union. Jeff Barton said The priority should be years 10 and 12, who are partway through GCSEs and A-levels, and year 6, where children are about to move to secondary school. Education Secretary Gavin Williamson said no date was set for returning to school, quashing speculation about an imminent return.
First human trials for a possible coronavirus vaccine are due to begin in Oxford later.
It's thought 2 people will be given the drug today, with more to follow. The Chief Medical Advisor, Professor Chris Whitty, says the chances of a vaccine being rolled out before 2021 are incredibly small. He also said it's likely the UK will have to live with social distancing measures until the end of the year.
Meanwhile, the government's scientific advisers are expected to resist pressure to recommend that we wear face coverings to stop the spread of coronavirus. There have been calls for the government to reconsider its guidance on masks after some European countries, including Germany and Austria, have made them compulsory in places where social distancing can't be maintained. London Mayor Sadiq Khan is among those who have called for masks to be used more widely in the UK.